"Dad, Aunt Maria has come back." The first words that came out of Trevor's mouth in 3.5 years were not addressed to the billionaire father, but to the 34-year-old Philippine who had just entered the mansion's cuisine in Manhattan. His twin brother, Tyler, ran through the gourmet kitchen in marble and threw herself in her arms, shouting, "Mama Maria, Mama Maria." Richard Blackstone almost knocked down the tablet he held when he heard his children's voices echoing around the house for the first time since the accident. At 42, the investment tycoon had built a $8 billion empire, but no penny had managed to return the voices to the 6-year-olds who were silent after witnessing their mother's death in a car accident. Maria Santos was not just any employee. She had worked for the family for 2 years before the tragedy, taking care of the children with a dedication that went far beyond the salary. When Victoria Blackstone died, Mary was summarily fired by Richard's mother-in-law, Eleanor Blackstone, a 67-year-old woman obsessed with status she considered inappropriate to maintain a Philippine nanny without the presence of the lady of the house. "Children need adequate influences," had declared Eleanor, saying goodbye without even consulting Richard, who was too devastated by the mourning to react at the time. For 3.5 years, Trevor and Tyler were taken care of by a succession of English and French babysitters, renowned children's psychologists and trauma specialists. None of them managed to pull a single word from the boys. Richard had hired Maria again in secret, desperate after the last psychiatrist suggests psychiatric hospitalization for the children. He found her working as a cleaning lady on 3 different jobs, sending money to the family in the Philippines, and still paying the sick father's medical debts. When he appeared at the door of the small apartment in Queens, Maria couldn't even disguise the tears. "Mr. Richard, how are my boys?" It was the first thing she asked, not about salary or conditions. Trevor and Tyler were his boys as much as they were children of Richard, something Eleanor could never understand. Now, watching the twins clinging to Mary as if she were their own salvation, Richard felt a wave of guilt that hit him as a punch in the stomach. How had you allowed your mother to destroy the only person who really connected with her children? "Mama Maria, you won't leave again, are you?" Tyler asked in English, but with the Filipino accent he had learned from her years ago. "Please don't let Grandma Eleanor send you away again." The mention of the grandmother made Richard's blood freezing. Eleanor did not know that Mary had returned. She had taken control of the house after Victoria's death, imposing her rigid rules on education, labor, and social property. For her, a Philippine cook that dared to call the children "my boys" was a direct affront to the natural order of things. Mary knelt at the height of the twins, holding her small faces between the calloused hands. "Mama Maria never leaves again," she promised, knowing she was declaring war against one of the most powerful women of the Manhattan elite. "You are my babies, and breast protects your babies." Richard watched the scene through the kitchen door, realizing something that 3 years of expensive therapy had not been able to identify. The boys had not lost their ability to speak for common psychological trauma. They had lost their voice because they lost the person who made them feel safe to express it. But there was something in Maria's eyes that Richard couldn't completely decipher, a fierce determination that went beyond maternal love, as if she knew exactly what she was facing and already had a plan. She was no longer the scared young woman who was humiliated and dismissed 3 years ago. There was a silent force in her now, forged for years of struggle and survival, which made Richard suspect that his mother had severely underestimated the woman who had just challenged. "Dad," Trevor called him, running to him with a smile that Richard hadn't seen for years. "Mama Maria will make pancit for dinner, and she said she will teach us real Tagalog this time." While the boys chatted excitedly for the first time in years, Richard noted that Mary watched him with an expression that mixed gratitude and something deeper. She knew the war was just beginning, but this time she wouldn't be taken by surprise. And if you are enjoying this story of justice and overcoming, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what Maria planned to do with Eleanor Blackstone would be a lesson that no elite family would ever forget. The discovery happened the next morning. Eleanor Blackstone arrived at the mansion at 9:30 a.m., as I did every Tuesday, to supervise the domestic affairs, an euphemism to control every aspect of grandchildren's lives. She stopped abruptly when she heard laughs from the kitchen, laughter of children, her children. For 3.5 years that house had been a silent mausoleum, and Eleanor had gotten used to the power that silence gave him. She controlled everything: the doctors, the therapists, the babysitters, even the meals Richard could or could not make with her children. The mutism of the twins had become its most powerful control tool. "Richard!" she shouted, marching the marble corridors with her jumps echoing as shots. "Richard, what noise is this?" She stopped at the kitchen entrance and her face paled. There was Maria Santos, sitting at the kitchen table with Trevor and Tyler, the three talking excitedly as they prepared some Philippine dish. The vision was a direct insult to the order that Eleanor had meticulously built. "What is happening here?" Eleanor shouted, his shrill voice cutting the environment like a blade. "Like this? Is this person at my house?" Maria got up slowly but did not lower her head as she had done years ago. This time she stared at Eleanor directly in her eyes. "Good morning, Mrs. Blackstone. I'm preparing the boys' snack." "The boys?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "These are my grandchildren, not your children, and you are not allowed to be in this house. Get out immediately." Trevor and Tyler clung to Mary's legs, clearly frightened by her grandmother's fury. "Grandma Eleanor," Tyler whispered, "please don't send Mama Maria away again. We just started talking because she came back." The innocent confession of the child hit Eleanor like a slap. For 3 years, she had paraded her grandchildren's big granddaughters by the best doctors in Manhattan, receiving sympathy and attention from high society as the dedicated grandmother who took care of traumatized children. Now a simple Philippine cook had achieved in one day what she couldn't get in years. "Richard," Eleanor shouted again, his voice echoing through the mansion. "Come here now. Explain me how this woman has returned to this house." Richard descended the stairs calmly, calculated, as if waiting for this moment. "Mom, Maria is our employee again. I hired her." "Did you hire you?" Eleanor turned to him with unbelief. "Without consulting me? After all, we talk about adequate influences for children." "Appropriate influences," Richard repeated, looking at his children who first spoke in years. "The boys are talking, Mother. They are alive again." Eleanor realized that he was losing control of the situation and left for the personal attack. "This woman is a profiteer, Richard. She has disappeared for 3 years and now comes back just when you are more vulnerable. Don't you see that she is manipulating you through children?" Maria remained calm, but Richard noted that she had discreetly linked the cell phone recorder. Interesting. Maria 3 years ago would never have thought of protecting herself in this way. "Mrs. Blackstone," Maria said softly, "I understand her concern, but the boys need emotional stability, not more changes." "Stability?" Eleanor laughed cruelly. "Do you think an immigrant who barely speaks correct English can give stability to the heirs of a billion-dollar empire? They need to learn about their inheritance, about their place in society, not about third-world food and irrelevant languages." The insult was so brutal that even Richard was shocked, but Mary didn't shake himself. Instead, an almost imperceptible smile went through her lips, as if Eleanor had just given her exactly what she expected. "I understand your position perfectly," Mary answered, carefully keeping her cell phone in her pocket. "Maybe we better talk about it more calmly at another time." Eleanor interpreted the calm answer as submission. "There will be no other moment. You leave now, and this time it will be permanently. Richard, either this woman leaves, or I completely cut the children's fiduciary background." The financial threat was Eleanor's final weapon. As the main beneficiary of Victoria's inheritance and legal controller of grandchildren, she had the power to transform children's lives into bureaucratic hell. Richard felt the old sense of powerlessness taking over him, the same one that had felt 3 years ago when he was too devastated by his mourning to fight. But when she looked at Maria, she saw that she didn't seem at all worried about the threat. "Okay, Mrs. Blackstone," Mary said calmly. "I'll prepare my things." Trevor and Tyler began to cry desperately, clinging to Mary with a force that broke the heart. "No, Mama Maria. Don't leave again." Eleanor observed the scene with cruel satisfaction. Children need to learn early on high social hierarchies. It is better for them to understand now what is the place of each person. But as Eleanor enjoyed her victory, she did not realize the look that Maria and Richard exchanged. It was not a look of defeat. It was a look of mutual understanding, as if both knew that Eleanor had just made a fatal mistake. Mary bent down to hug the twins for the last time that day. "Mama Maria will come back," she whispered in Tagalog, "and this time, no one will ever be able to separate us again." Eleanor did not understand Tagalog, but something in Mary's tone of voice made her feel an inexplicable shiver up the spine. For a brief moment she wondered if she had underestimated the determination of that woman who had just humbled again. 3 days later, Maria Santos was not crying in her small apartment in Queens. She was quietly sitting at an office in Midtown Manhattan, across David Chen's table, one of the city's most respected labor rights lawyers. The same man who had defended dozens of immigrants against powerful families and had never lost an affair. "So you have everything recorded?" Chen asked, analyzing Maria's cell phone with professional interest. "The statements about third world, irrelevant languages, place of each person, everything," Mary confirmed, her firm and determined voice. "And it's not the first time. For the 2 years I worked for them before, Eleanor always made comments like that when Richard wasn't around." David Chen smiled slowly. "Maria, you know who Eleanor Blackstone is in Manhattan society, right? She is president of the Blackstone Foundation for Cultural Diversity." The irony did not go unnoticed by Maria. For 3.5 years, she had observed from afar while Eleanor gave interviews for newspapers about inclusion and respect for diversity, always with that false smile and carefully chosen words. The same woman who had called her third world in front of traumatized children. "There is one more thing," Maria said, taking a folder from her bag. "I kept all the work contracts of the babysitters she hired after me. All European, all white, all with 60% larger salaries than mine, even with smaller qualifications." Chen flowered the documents with increasing interest. "This is documented racial and ethnic discrimination, Maria. We have a solid case." But Maria was not over. "Mr. Chen, I'm 34, and spent the last 3 working on 3 different jobs to survive. Cleaning offices at dawn, cooking in weekends, taking care of the elderly during the afternoons. All this because Eleanor Blackstone decided that a Philippine did not deserve to take care of children in a rich family." The pain in Mary's voice was real, but there was something more there. A determination forged by years of humiliation and struggle. "I don't just want money, Mr. Chen. I want everyone to see who she really is." David Chen had represented many cases of discrimination, but rarely saw such a prepared and strategic victim. "Maria, do you understand that processing the Blackstone will mean total war? They will try to destroy your reputation, question your documentation, use all available resources. Let them try," Maria answered, her eyes shining with a confidence that was not 3 years ago. "I have had American citizenship for 8 years, diplomas of pedagogy and child psychology recognized here, impeccable references of all my jobs, and now I have evidence of the discrimination I suffered." Chen leaned back on his chair, impressed. Maria, who was before him, was not the tearful victim Eleanor imagined. She was a polite, prepared, and strategic woman who had used her 3 years of separation to strengthen herself in every way possible. "There's one more thing Eleanor doesn't know about me," Maria continued, an enigmatic smile emerging on her lips. "My older sister, Carmen Santos, is the director of the New York State Department of Social Services. She has access to all the processes of tutelage and minors in the region." The revelation has reached Chen as a lightning. "You are saying that Eleanor Blackstone has had 3 lawsuits filed against her by children's emotional negligence in the last 2 years, Maria confirmed. "Neighbors called social services reporting that the boys shouted at night, who were never seen playing in the garden, which seemed too erased for children of that age." Chen felt his lawyer brain working at all speed. "And these processes were filed why?" "Because Eleanor used the family's influence to drown out," Mary explained. "But the reports are all there, documenting 3.5 years of systematic emotional neglect of 2 traumatized children." The room was silent for a moment while Chen He processed the magnitude of what Mary had just revealed. It was not just a case of labor discrimination. It was a case that could completely destroy Eleanor Blackstone's reputation and expose years of emotional abuse disguised as proper care. "Maria," Chen said slowly, "you spent 3 years planning this, didn't you?" "Senor Chen," she replied, getting up and smoothing the simple but elegant blazer that had bought especially for that meeting. "Eleanor Blackstone underestimated me because he saw only a frightened Philippine immigrant. She did not see that I have 2 sisters formed at American universities, parents who taught me that education is the only thing no one can take from you, and a determination that grows with each humiliation suffered." Chen watched Maria walk to the window that sought Manhattan, seeing in her posture something he recognized in his most successful clients, the calm of who knows that justice is by his side. "When Eleanor said goodbye in front of the children 3 years ago, she made 2 fatal errors," Maria continued, without turning around. "First, she gave me time to prepare me. Second, she hurt Trevor and Tyler to hurt me, and that I will never forgive." Chen smiled, knowing that he had just found a client who would not only win the case, but would turn that victory into a lesson that the Manhattan elite would never forget. What Eleanor Blackstone did not know was that the war she had started 3 years ago was about to end in a way that would destroy everything she valued most: her reputation, her social position, and her control over the family she used as a personal trophy. The bomb exploded on the morning of a Tuesday, exactly a week later. Eleanor Blackstone was having his organic breakfast on the terrace of his roof when his cell phone started playing incessantly. The first call was from Margaret Winthrop, chairman of the Foundation for Cultural Diversity. "Eleanor, you need to see the New York Times now," Margaret said, his tremendous voice of panic. "First page, research section. Your name is in headline." Eleanor almost overthrew the cup of Chinese porcelain when he read the title. "President of the Diversity Foundation accused of systematic racial discrimination. Recordings reveal prejudice against Philippine employee." His official photograph of the foundation appeared next to a picture of Maria Santos holding Trevor and Tyler in the mansion garden, both smiling radiant. The caption said, "Maria Santos, a pedagogue and children's psychologist. Got in one day what years of expensive therapy have not reached, returned their voice to seedlings. The article was devastating. Each prejudiced word Eleanor had said was transcribed with surgical accuracy. The recordings had been audited by independent experts who confirmed their authenticity. Worse still, the reporter had managed to interview the 7 European babysitters who worked for the family after Mary was fired. Mrs. Blackstone always made it clear that certain people were not suitable to take care of good family children, one of them had revealed, on condition of anonymity. She said Asians were too submissive, and that was bad for the development of children's leadership. While Eleanor Leah, horrified, your phone rang again. This time it was her own lawyer, Marcus Holloway, with a voice she had never heard before. Total panic. Eleanor, we have a much larger problem than labor discrimination, he said quickly. David Chen has just filed a lawsuit at the federal court. They have 3 years documentation of child neglect processes that were drowned out using political influence. The Department of Social Services has reopened formal investigation into the guardianship of boys. Eleanor felt the blood freezing. This is impossible. These processes have been archived. They were not filed, Eleanor. They were paused by political pressure. There is a huge legal difference, Marcus explained, his voice loaded with professional despair. Carmen Santos, Maria's sister, is the department director. She has access to all the original reports of the investigators. The second bomb exploded when Eleanor turned on the television. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all channels were conveying the same story. But what made her nauseous was seeing Maria Santos giving a press conference at the federal court door, wearing an elegant blue blazer, talking to a perfect articulation and a dignity that made Eleanor look like a cruel witch. I'm not doing this for revenge, Maria said to the cameras, holding the hand of Trevor and Tyler, who had insisted on being there. I'm doing this because every child deserves to be loved without prejudice, and every worker deserves to be treated with basic dignity, regardless of its origin. A rep partner asked Eleanor's accusations. Maria responded with a calm that destroyed any victimization narrative. Mrs. Blackstone is president of a foundation that defends cultural diversity. I leave the viewers to judge coherence between her public words and her private actions. The final blow came when Maria revealed something no one expected. During the 3 years I was away from the boys, I finished my master's degree in child development at Columbia University. My thesis was about the effects of trauma on children of privileged families. Interestingly, Trevor and Tyler were my anonymous case study. Eleanor had to lean on the wall. Mary had used her own forced separation to qualify even more, transforming injustice into academic knowledge. The master's dissertation, which would be made public, scientifically documenting 3 years of children's emotional neglect. Richard appeared on the roof 1 hour later, with an expression that Eleanor had never seen, a mixture of deep disappointment and anger contained. Mom, the company's executive board called me. They are considering removing you from the board of directors. Richard, you need to support me, Eleanor has begged, his voice sounding desperate for the first time in decades. This woman is trying to destroy our family. Our family? Richard laughed bitterly. Mom, you spent 3 years destroying my children to keep your control. Mary has healed them in 1 day, and now I find out that you used political influence to stifle investigations into childish neglect. Who exactly is destroying our family? The phone rang again. This time he was the president of the Blackstone Foundation for Cultural Diversity, calling Eleanor to an emergency council meeting. His position was officially in question. As Eleanor shut down the phone, she saw a crowd of reporters gathering on the sidewalk in front of the building. Her privileged and carefully built life was crumbling live, transmitted to millions of people who now knew exactly who she was behind the philanthropy mask. Maria Santos had turned 3 years of humiliation into a perfect strategy of justice, using her own weapons that Eleanor valued most, education, connections, and influence, to completely destroy the woman who believed to be untouchable. The war was over, and Eleanor finally understood that he had severely underestimated not only a Philippine immigrant, but a brilliant strategist who had turned each fuel insult for perfect revenge. 6 months later, transformation in the Blackstone family was impossible to ignore. Trevor and Tyler, now almost 7 years old, were freely running through the garden of the mansion, their laughter echoing through the open windows while Maria prepared the afternoon snack. The house that for years had been a silent mausoleum now throbbing with life, animated conversations, and the contagious energy of genuinely happy children. Maria had officially become the legal tutor of the twins after an investigation into social services that revealed 3 years of systematic emotional neglect. The process was fast and unanimous. All researchers concluded that children flourished emotionally only with her presence, and that their forced absence had been the root cause of their prolonged mutism. Mama Maria, Tyler ran to the kitchen, dirty from the garden land. "Can I help make lump for dinner?" "Of course, my love," Maria smiled, helping him to wash his hands. "But first, let's finish the Tagalog lesson. Papa Richard said he wants to learn too." Richard had become a completely different man. Free from the mother's toxic control, he was finally able to genuinely connect with his children. During the weekends, the family visited the Philippine community in Queens, where Mary had grown. Trevor and Tyler loved to play with the foster cousins, learning a new culture that enriched them rather than limiting them. "Did you know that Mama Maria is famous now?" Trevor told Richard during dinner. "At school, everyone wants to meet her. The teacher said she's a heroine." In fact, Maria had become a national inspiring figure. Her story was the cover of Time magazine, and she had been invited to lecture at universities on resilience and social justice. The indemnity money, $2 million, she had divided between an educational background for immigrant children and the Philippine community of Queens. "I didn't do it for the money," Maria always explained in the interviews. "I did for the dignity of every person who has already been judged by their origin instead of their character." Meanwhile, Eleanor Blackstone had literally lost everything that valued the most, was removed from all advice, lost position at the foundation that bearing the family name, and he was being investigated for multiple accusations of abuse of power and corruption. Her high society friends avoided her as if she were radioactive, and newspapers regularly used it as an example of elite hypocrisy. The final blow came when Richard officially removed his name from family documents, cutting all contact with his mother. "Eleanor chose prejudice instead of the family," he said publicly. "Now you need to live with the consequences of this choice." Maria did not enjoy the fall of Eleanor, just a restored sense of justice. "I never wanted to destroy her," she confided to David Chen during one of the last meetings about the case. "I just wanted her to stop hurting innocent children with her prejudice." Trevor and Tyler had not only recovered their voices, but became exceptionally articulated and empathic children. They spoke 3 languages fluently, had exemplary notes at school, and more importantly, they had developed a deep sense of social justice that only comes from those who witnessed both prejudice and overcoming. "Mama Maria," Tyler asked one afternoon, "why was Grandma Eleanor so bad with you?" Maria thought carefully before answering. "Some people believe that being different is being inferior, my love. They are afraid of what they don't know, but the difference is what makes the world beautiful, like a garden full of different flowers." "And did you show her that it was wrong?" Trevor added. "I showed nothing," Maria smiled. "You showed. When you spoke again, you proved that love has no color, accent, or nationality. Love is simply." That night, Richard found Maria reading to the twins in the library, the same library where Eleanor used to receive high society visits and make prejudiced comments about certain people. Now that space was full of books in Tagalog, English, and Portuguese, as well as photos of the Filipina de Maria family mixed with the memories of the Blackstone. "Maria," Richard said after the kids went to sleep, "I will never be able to thank enough for what you did for us." "You don't have to thank Richard," she replied. "You saved me as much as I saved you. You gave me a family when I thought you would never have one." The story of Maria Santos has proved something that Eleanor Blackstone has never been able to understand, that true excellence does not know borders of race, class, or nationality. May genuine love always triumph over prejudice, and that sometimes the people the most underestimated society are exactly those who have the power to change it forever. Trevor and Tyler would grow up knowing that family is not defined by blood or social status, but by love, dedication, and mutual respect. They would become adults who defend the oppressed, who celebrate differences, and never allow prejudice to overcome love. And you, what would you do if you witness injustice against someone you love? Leave it in the comments if you have faced prejudice, or if you know someone who has overcome obstacles through education and determination. If this story has touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that show how justice, even if it takes, always finds your way. Maria learned that the best revenge is not to destroy who has harmed you, it is to build something so beautiful and strong that it makes all the evil they have tried to cause you. Eleanor tried to break Maria, but ended up breaking herself, and in the end, love always overcomes hatred because love builds while prejudice only destroys.